Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Getting Started podcast. I'm here with self-fulfillment advocate and realtor extraordinaire, Kyler Gifford. We were hooked up through Trey Carmichael, and I wanted to have him here on the show. He's a big proponent of the law of attraction, and let's get started here. Kyler, what's up, man? How you doing this evening?
I'm doing good, Sean. Hello, everybody. And thank you for having me on. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to talk about these things. And I appreciate Trey for hooking us up. He's an amazing human being and a great friend of mine.
Cool, man. Yeah, we had him on here, a few episodes back, and he was one that said you really got him started on this journey, that you really kind of pushed him in this direction. And I see nothing but great things for Trey in the future. He's doing big things now, even for, as young as he is. I mean, he's 22 years old now? I mean, dude, he's doing things that,
21, I believe.
oh, 21. Okay. So, I mean, yeah, dude, at 21, if I was even half of where he's at now, dude, I'd be in so much better shape. Pretty sure at 21, the only thing I was worried about was where my next party was and what girls I was chasing around,
Yes, I do.
So anyways, man, self-fulfillment advocate, man. Iterate a little bit on that for us, if you don't mind.
Sure. So that is a title that I kind of came up with, or rather came to me, because I've noticed that a lot of people, not everybody, I'm not, casting blame to anybody. Just I've noticed a lot of people, and I myself was this and still fall victim to this sometimes. I'm not above it at all. People living their life based on the opinions and desires of others, what they think they should be doing because others think they should be doing that. And they give up their dreams, their desires, their passions, what they know would fulfill them because they want to be accepted by their peers, by society. So I have coined myself as a self-fulfillment advocate because I advocate and I want to push people, not force them, because then that is me putting my opinion on them. I want to show them that they can be themselves and create whatever life they want, and it will be a successful one. Whether it's dollars or no dollars, that's irrelevant. Whatever fulfills them as human beings, I advocate for people to follow that voice.
Dude, that's awesome. That is actually one of the best descriptions of anything I think I've ever heard somebody talk about. I mean, cool. there's nobody. I mean, you hear about life coaches and you hear about business coaches and all these different coaches doing all these different things. And man, you just kind of summed up exactly what it was I needed to hear probably, I don't know, 8 months to a year ago in like a minute.
Try to make it short, sweet, and to the point. That's what I try to do.
So, all right, aside from that, you're doing the realtor business. That's your monetary income going in. Anything else
Yes.
you're tied up in at the moment, or?
No, I spend my career is a real estate agent, which I love. That fulfills me. That also helps with the self-fulfillment stuff, because sometimes I wonder, am I a real estate agent? Am I a best friend? Am I a therapist? Am I a magician? What am I? Because there's a lot of emotion that goes into buying and selling homes.
Having literally just bought my first home a year ago. As a matter of fact, a year ago last week. Yeah, I will agree with that. Realtors, they take care of a lot of our emotions. Sometimes y'all get
congratulations.
Well, yeah, sometimes y'all get unloaded on with some very unwanted and unjustly placed emotions, to say the least.
Yes. But, going back to following my inner voice, I know that I don't feel walked all over and I don't feel strung out, because this is something that I'm being called or pulled to do. And I don't know if real estate is forever, but I do know it is for right now. And I know I'm passionate about it. I'm also passionate about spreading the awareness that you can be whoever you want to be.
Hey man,
But
that's
those are
cool.
my two primary endeavors. Those are my two primary endeavors.
Cool, man. Cool. All right, so man, let's get started with this, man. Give me a little bit of your background story, man. I mean, what kind of childhood did you have? Were your parents in the entrepreneurial business? Were they in the realtor business? I mean, did you grow up kind of like in the middle of the suburbs? Were you out in the country somewhere? You didn't have a whole lot of money, or maybe you were one of those families that you started with a trust fund. I mean, where were you? What is your background? Where did you get started at with all this?
Okay, fair question. If I ramble on a little bit, please just feel free to stop me. Um, Ultimately, and I thought a lot about this because I haven't really talked about all these things openly, so as to not offend anyone. Uh, but no, I was never the rich kid. Just in any sense of the word, I did not grow up wealthy. I wasn't the poorest kid, so I can't say that I had it worse off than everybody. But mom and dad, dad lives in a different state, and he has my entire life. So it was me and my mom, and I have a stepfather who was there for me. Um, I grew up between Wimber. I was born in San Marcos, but grew up between San Marcos, Wimberley, and Kyle. Uh, and I lived in the sticks, which is the woods. Wimberley, I lived out in the woods for a while.
I know all about the sticks, man. I spent a lot of time out there.
I love the sticks. You can do whatever you want.
Yes, you can. You absolutely can. With very, very little fear of being caught.
Exactly. So it's scary and fulfilling, because it's like you're doing whatever you want, but so is everybody else.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
So that's pretty much where I grew up. You want me to talk about school and stuff?
Yeah, man. I mean, were you really good at school? Like, did you know kind of early on that you weren't good at like a lot of the stuff? I don't know how school is down there in Texas. I grew up, for the most part, all my schooling was really done in Tennessee, like my real formative years, anyways. And you know, we were taught your basic school curriculum, English and math and not a whole lot of real open ideas about anything. I'm from a real small, closed-minded town. If you stepped out of the norm, I mean, for years, people looked at me like I was a devil worshiper. I was a Satanist just because I had black hair. It was long black hair on a guy, and that was the worst thing that could happen, apparently.
Yeah. Wow. Because that defines who you are, right?
I know, right? And granted, once they started doing it, I took the ball and rolled with it because, hey, why not,
Yeah.
If you're going to label me like
that
that,
way.
I'm going to make sure that you think I'm the absolute worst of me you can do. But I mean, like, so I mean, were you pretty good in school? I mean, did you have good grades and meet everybody's expectations, or were you one of the rebellious kids that got in a lot of fights?
Okay. I will answer that, but to take it back real quick, just to answer one thing that I left out on the former question. My mother was not entrepreneurial. She wanted to be, but she never really was. My father definitely was. So yeah, I wanted to clear that up so
Okay.
people knew. In school, I was always a nerd. Bottom line, I was a nerd. I got bullied. I got made fun of. I just, yeah. So up until ninth grade, if I remember correctly, I never got anything other than A's. And then something happened in ninth grade where I started caring about other things, girls, fun. I got really heavy into video games, which ultimately served me well in my future, but I'll talk about that later. And I don't know. I honestly just, after ninth grade, I started not giving school as much attention because, like you, what were they teaching me? They were teaching me history of this country, which is, filtered through to to relate to our
Mm-hmm.
history, right? Because we're the victors of all these wars.
Exactly. History is written by the
They
victor.
taught us, it's his story, isn't it?
Exactly.
They were teaching us impractical and unapplicable math. They were teaching us. I like science. I liked physics because it kind of bleeds into philosophy sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I just started not paying attention in school, and so my grades started to slip a little bit. But I wasn't a partier. I didn't go to my first party until junior year, and then I had like half a Budweiser, and it was like I was feeling
Kyler's
so
drunk,
out of
everybody.
yeah. So yeah, I spent a lot of time kind of being a nerd, a recluse, making a lot of iPhone hacking videos.
Okay. So like, did you have, were you working a job while you were in high school? I mean, most of us do. I assume you did. Did you have like a first job that really stuck out to you or that you remember very well?
Yes, my first job, I was 15 and I got hired at Subway, which was kind of actually an interesting story. I used to skateboard really heavily. I still do, but I don't get to do it as much as I love. But I skateboarded to this Subway like a few miles from my house all the time. And I ate Subway. I always eating Subway. And the manager just got to know me. She would see me skate up. She'd already start making my sandwich. One day she was really short staffed and she was like, "You're in here all the time. Do you want a job?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." I had my eyes set on this Camaro, my first law of attraction thing. And you never hired someone at 15. So I had to like get my mom to come in and sign all these waivers. Like, yeah, he can handle a knife. Like he can use the toaster oven, and I worked at Subway for 2 years. I worked up to assistant manager at 2 locations, at the Kyle one and at Wimberley. And I was able to save money, and man, that was a hard time because I was going to school from the morning until, I'd be ready to go to work at about 5:00, get off of school at 4, walk, skateboard home, get ready for work, skateboard to work, and then work until 2 or 3 in the morning, and then go to school, skateboard. So it was a cool time, but it was a lot of hard work.
Okay, so you were already developing your grind before you really got out there and really started having to learn what the grind was. You were already starting, all right, well, this is what I got to do because this is what I want.
Exactly. Like because I didn't grow up in the wealthiest family, we didn't get spoiled. We would get presents and we would get things from time to time, but really, if you compared like our household technological standards versus others, we were a few generations back always. Our stuff wasn't primo. And so whenever I started, making money, and it wasn't like I was getting paid ridiculous amounts of money, but I was able to buy cool stuff. And so to be able to and go places and like to be the friend that always had money. So I was able to like spoil my friends, and it was just fun because before I was kid in the room playing video games, hacking iPhones. Now I'm the guy that can take his friends on adventures because I'm the guy that has the work ethic, I guess.
Yeah, you were
So
the
it kept me
friend that had the
motivated.
money, man. And I
It was
can relate
cool.
to that. I mean, the circle of friends that I had, there was one of us that always had a job. There was one of us that always had a car. There was one of us that always had some money. There was one of us that always had a connection to get what we wanted to get into, and it always worked out like
Sure.
that somehow or another. Uh, Unfortunately, I was always the guy that had the car, so I had to drive everywhere. And it drove me nuts, and I think it's led to my hate of driving now. Like, if you give me the option between, drive from point A to point B or wait 10 minutes longer and wait for the Uber guy to get there, I'm waiting on Uber every single time.
I don't blame. Especially if you were the guy always driving.
Yeah. Oh man, it was cool. But I remember it getting to a point. I had a 1990 Ford Probe that was a half Ford, half Mazda. And man, the speedometer on the car stopped at like 85 or 90. And I remember one night in particular, we were headed back from some party that was like an hour and a half away, and it was like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And I just remember seeing the needle on the speedometer sitting there bouncing up and down very rapidly on the 90 mark the entire time I'm driving. And I have no clue really how we got home that night. So, fortunately, I was very lucky in a lot of situations like that. But, that was just my role, though. I was the guy with the car. I had another buddy who was the guy with the money, and we always seemed to be together because he didn't have a car. But, man, he had money for gas all the time and always wanted to go somewhere. So
you got to have the full crew, right? The full crew's got to – the teamwork makes the dream work.
Exactly, man. You can't just be a one-man show.
Not.
So, all right, you got this work ethic going, man, and you're achieving your dreams before you even really know what your dreams are, I guess. So how old were you when you realized that kind of the everyday working 9 to 5, or especially working in the restaurant business, man, it's not 9 to 5, it's 5, 6 until 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and that I hate that shift.
Yep.
So how old were you when you realized that was just kind of the end of it? That I'm not doing that no more. I've got to make a change here.
Well, so I had a lot of jobs, whenever I got tired somewhere, I didn't just quit. I had to have good reason. I always knew, I was the hardest worker. And I don't say that from being cocky. I say that I see how I work and I see how others work, and I was always the hardest worker. So after going job to job and, always being treated poorly, even though I was working harder than everybody else and they were skating through making the same amount of money as me, I want to say I was 20 years old. Well, I actually started my first business. It was called iFix iMod when I was 16 or 17. Which was fixing and modding iPhones. Before it was on every street corner, right? I was doing it through Craigslist, and people would meet me. I was wearing Bob Marley shirts. My hair was much longer than it is now. They were like, "Oh, this is the guy that's going to fix my phone." Okay. So that was my first business. But when I was 20, I was working at Dollar General. I was the assistant manager there. And again, the hardest worker. There's this process at Dollar General, and for those that work retail know it, it's called recovery. And it's the night shift, goes through the store, brings everything from the back of the shelf to the front of the shelf, makes it look pretty for the next day. Mm-hmm. Me and a good friend of mine, still friends, we were the only 2 employees that would do it. And one night I was working the night shift. We have a brand new manager come on, old dude, 65, not, no offense to old people. But this guy had a problem with young people. And so one night, it was a busy night, and we probably only recovered 60 or 80% of the store. And he comes in next, and then I work the morning shift the next morning. So I get like 5 hours of sleep, and then I come in the next day. He comes in there, he's yelling at me. He's pissed off at me, saying, just shitting on my work ethic, telling me all these negative things about me. And I'm like, Jeff, wasn't supposed to say his name. Sorry. Guy, I'm the only one here and my friend that is doing this. If I have a rough night, get off my back about it. And he goes, pardon my language, fuck you, Kyler. I looked dead at him. Walked out of the store.
Deuces out.
Called the general manager, and I was like, I'm going to quit right now. This is what happened. And he didn't have my back, so I quit that day. And my now fiance, girlfriend at the time, we talked about it, and I was just telling her I cannot work a W-2 job. I started listening to these, I can't remember who it was at the time, but just people talking about living the life you want to live and blah, blah, blah. And so I looked up a career that met my personality type, hardworking, good with people, willing to do what it takes. And that happened to be real estate. And I got a job at Pizza Hut while delivery driving, while I was going through real estate school. My beautiful, wonderful fiance invested in me. She paid for my real estate school. And that was kind of the start of that. That was when I got into it.
Nice, nice. And, it's great you had someone there to support you on that was able to, invest that money into you and especially invest that time into you. Cause I know I could probably count on, both hands and feet at the same time. I've had several friends of mine, several acquaintances, they want to start into this, they want to start into that. And as soon as they start looking at the prices and the time that it's going to take to get to this point, and then they look, well, I've got to pay for a test after that, and I've got to, pay for continuing education after that, and they give up before they even really start. And sickening isn't really the right word for it. I guess, disheartening, heartbreaking, I guess is kind of the word I'm looking for that. It's like, man, you guys, there's so much potential there, and you're just not going for it. Come on. But fortunately, you jumped at the chance, and she was back to you 100%. And obviously, y'all are still together, apparently. So
yes, get married.
I'm sure that put a little tension in there somewhere, but hey, you worked through it, So I mean,
well,
go ahead.
And yeah, it's overwhelming. Starting anything is overwhelming, whether it's real estate or starting anything that is not an established system that you're walking into is overwhelming, because you have to literally create the system. But the thing is you get more reward on the other end, because now you are in control of your lifestyle. And so the money, the courses, anything, whether it's real estate or anything, when you are your own boss, you don't have to get yelled at by the Jeffs of the world because you're the hardest working employee, and he treats you worse than other people because of what, I don't know. I can't think of what's going on in his mind, but yeah, it is worth it at the end of the day. All the time, energy, stress, effort. It's not always glorious, but it's fun because you're creating whatever the life you want to live, and you're in control of it.
Yeah, I hear you, man. That's part of what's driven me to get on this whole journey to begin with, man. I mean, I'm an electrician by trade. I'm good at my job. I work my ass off.
Nice.
And I didn't even get started in this until I was in my mid-20s before I even started looking into it. And when I first got into it, man, I didn't even get into electrical work. I got into doing solar work, mostly based out of Kentucky.
Nice.
And, I put the money in to go to school, learn everything, get certified. And I don't think Texas kind of gets included. Y'all aren't part of the TVA electric grid, are you? Tennessee Valley Authority? I think y'all have your own.
I can't imagine we are.
Okay. I know TVA is a big, big conglomerate, man. I think they own like 7 states worth of power or something like that. It's something ridiculous. Yeah. It's like Tennessee and then every state that touches it. It's absolutely insane. And they got a bunch of bureaucratic policies in place right now that really put a damper on doing solar, especially on the residential side of things, which is the sector that I was in. And, I took what I learned from that. And I just kind of invested a little more time and rolled it over into doing electrical work. And that's what I've been doing for about the better part of the last decade anyways. And it's been great to me. I love what I do. I have a lot of fun with it. I learn something new almost daily. But it kind of goes back to I'm still on that hourly grind, still on a week-to-week paycheck, and you get to a point where it's not what you want, and it's just not enough anymore. So, anyways, back to you, man.
But you could create your own business, though.
You're right. I could.
Like you could be the master electrician, and you could still do what you love and still be in control. Not have to do. But then again, you get into that. You have to create all these systems, and you have a family of 4, so I understand stability it's a lot more of an importance than a 20-year-old guy and his girlfriend working at Dollar General. You know, stability plays a factor there.
Oh yeah, it definitely puts a little bit of a squeeze on, you know, making things happen, especially as far as time is concerned. Time is the biggest challenge that I have almost on a daily basis. Um, Especially, you know, in the construction industry, it's not 9 to 5, man. I'm up at 4. I might get home at 4, 4:30, 5. You never really know. Um,
Yep.
and then, you know, I don't know about you. I'm, you know, in my mid 30s. If I'm not in bed by 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, getting up at 4 is not in the cards. Um, but you know,
well, I'm 24, by the way, just to answer that.
okay, I was about to say you look kind of young. I wasn't really sure myself, especially, you know, these days. You know, I've gotten to the point where I used to be really good at guessing people's ages, man, but I can't do it no more. So I'll guess somebody's, you know, in their 30s, my age, and no, they're in their, you know, 20s, and then I'll think somebody else might be in their 20s and they're really, you know, closer to 40. It's like, wait a minute now, what happened here? uh, but I guess that's just part of having kids, and especially having as many kids, man. You know, I watch my kids grow up, and it's just like, man, just the other day I could like hold them in my hand, and now I'm taking them to soccer practice. It's like, whoa, hang on, where does
It's
the
too
time
fast.
go? But you know, I love it. I wouldn't have it any other
Flies on
way.
highways for no man.
No, I don't, man. All right, so man, you're in the real estate business. How long did it take you to really kind of get your foot in the door to where not so much that you knew what you were doing, but that you knew waking up every day or even going into the start of a week that you weren't really going to have to worry about how well you did that week?
Oh man, that's a loaded question. Good one. It's a good one, but it's loaded. I guess in attempts to be authentic, I can't say, well, I don't fully have that mastered. Some days I'm still worried. And not so, but it all goes back to when my mindset shifted, because the the money and the clients and the work and the business, that all comes. It just comes if you stay persistent, you stay relevant. So I have to make constant mental corrections and adjustments that say, Kyler, you're fine, stay faithful, and keep your eye on the vision that you can create. And I think that answers your question. It's I think when you enter into an entrepreneurial endeavor, I mean, I guess unless you're Jeff Bezos and Amazon, when you're at that point, I guess you can feel pretty comfortable that the business is coming in and you don't really have to think much about it. But I think everybody, the little guys, and I very much am still a little guy, you got to stay constantly hustling. And I still am there. I am still in the trenches of the entrepreneurial hustle. But I know now that if I stay focused, I stay hustling, the business will come. And if I stay confident that it will come, it will come. And I don't necessarily want to advocate that people need to work themselves to the bone every single day. Because if you do that, you're going to lose sight of the vision. You're going to wear yourself out, and you're not going to be excited about what you're doing anymore.
Yeah, man. I mean, I've been a victim of what I call the burnout before. You know, especially for someone like me, I've got a very obsessive personality, and I think it comes from, you know, even though going back to when I was a kid, man, kind of like you, I was sort of the nerdy, geeky guy. Not so much. Well, I went through a little tech phase, but man, my big thing back then was comic books, man. And I couldn't get enough of them. I'm in my mid-30s now, man. I still can't get enough of them. I mean, the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, man, that has blown my mind for 10 years now, and I couldn't be happier. um, But I was always very obsessive with things like that. And when you get obsessive with something like that, and you put all your passion and all your energy into it, and you don't get any results, burnout can happen real quick, man. And I'm glad to see you recognize that, and that you can stop and pivot and kind of be like, all right, I've got this. Just stay the course. Don't falter. Because we're all human. We're all going to make mistakes. We're all going to have doubts. It's just natural. It's just about how you adjust and overcome those pillars that you run into that really determine, I guess, whether you're going to be successful or not.
And there's a quote that I like to constantly revert back to in regards to what you just said. And Napoleon Hill, I don't know if you're familiar with him. He said it. I see only the objective. The obstacle must give way. So when you're confronted with these things that life seems to throw at us to test us to see how devoted and dedicated are you, how confident and faithful are you, life throws up these barriers, these walls, and says, well, hey, are you going to let that stop you? Are you going to run through it, over it, around it? I'm going to blow it up with dynamite. Whatever I have to do to see the vision through, I'm going to do it.
Hell yeah, man. And that's where you got to be.
And then failure is not an option, because Albert Einstein says, I have not failed 1,000 times. I've just found 1,000 ways that didn't work.
Yeah. Hey, coming from Einstein, I didn't know the guy. I really didn't on a personal level, but I'm pretty sure he was a fairly smart dude. Just putting that out there in case anybody didn't know. Yeah.
Yeah, just a little.
So, I mean, and that's part of why I started this podcast too, man. It's like people want to do this stuff, but they don't want to get started because a lot of people look at these obstacles before they even look at the prize, man. I mean, yep. and that that was one thing that held me back for a lot of years was, yeah, I kind of knew what I wanted to do, but it's like, well, if I do that, I'm gonna have to do this, and I really don't want to do that. I don't want to have to deal with this. I'll get around to it later. And that's everybody's biggest excuse anymore is, well, I'll get to it later. I'll get to it later. Well, for a lot of people, later never comes. And if take action now or settle for what you got, which is fine to some people. Me, it's not anymore.
Sure. Well, I say that I recognize that in a lot of people too. And the advice that I give there is work backwards from the vision. As long as you can keep the vision top of mind, everything else just presents itself. And I can't explain it. I can't explain how. I didn't create the universe. I don't know. But you keep that vision top of mind and everything else just comes. And as it comes, as these obstacles, as these things present themselves, you take them on one by one. And the best analogy here for me is, does Mario jump to the top of the flagpole from the ground? No, he climbs the steps. Hey, you can't skip the steps.
That's true.
You can maybe get halfway, but you can't skip the steps.
No, not if you want the top.
So, not if you want the top. So see the top of that flagpole and climb the steps.
Yeah, it's a very good way of looking at it, man. And never thought about the Mario reference before. I will give you A+ props for that one. Way to go, sir.
Thank you.
So, man, when you got started, yeah, man, video games is where it was at. Still where it's at. Well, I don't know. I personally don't have the same respect, I guess.
Sure.
A lot of games these days really don't grab my attention the way they used to, man. I was always an RPG gamer, man. Final Fantasy and Legend of Dragoon and the good old classics. I'm not a Call of Duty guy. I don't care about it. I don't care about Grand Theft Auto. It's Fortnite can rot in hell for all I'm concerned.
Hey, let's not get political here, all right?
So, man, all right, you're in the real estate business, and gotten started. You're, obviously, I'm not going to say you're like a legit super successful realtor right now. Um, but I mean, you've done fairly well by all accounts that I've heard from, you and Trey. Um, did you have any kind of mentors that really kind of showed you the ropes, or was it just all a full on learning from, you know, square one, and if you did have a mentor, I mean, who was the who was that person that really escalated you to be better than what you were being at the time?
Well, a couple points there. First, I'm going to grab something here. So I may not be Warren Buffett, but just I have a little bit of credentials here.
There you go.
Not to brag, just to establish credentials.
For those who can't see, that was his highest producer award.
Okay. Oh yeah, just in case there's no video. A lot of my mentors in the beginning, and the real mental shift happened. I was working at a restaurant in Wimberley when I was licensed for the first 6 or 7 months. And I was still not getting it at the time. I had my real estate license for 7 months and I hadn't sold one house. But the problem wasn't that I was failing people. I just wasn't getting opportunities. I wasn't able to present myself as a confident professional. Well, I got introduced to Napoleon Hill, who wrote many great books, Think and Grow Rich, Outwitting the Devil. And reading his books, I experienced this mental shift that I can't explain. It was like the veil, the sheet had been ripped from my eyes, and suddenly I was aware of the power that I possessed. And so my main mentor early on was him. Unfortunate thing about him was he was dead. So I couldn't ask him any questions. I couldn't call him. But that also turned me on to the idea, and for other people out there, your mentors don't have to be alive. They don't even have to be from this era. I mean, Napoleon Hill died in 1935 or 1920, somewhere around that time. And then so a lot of my other mentors weren't alive either. Some of which were Alan Watts, who is an incredibly articulate philosopher. Bob Proctor, he's actually alive. He's still kicking. He's really old now, but he's amazing. He basically took Napoleon Hill's work and revamped it for the modern era and goes off with it. So those three guys were really my major mentors and still are. I just referenced Napoleon Hill 5 minutes ago. Mm-hmm. I constantly go back to them, and I constantly go back to their work, and I reread it. I re-listen to them, because as I evolve, I glean new things from the same things that I was reading and listening to. So that was my mind. Go ahead.
I could definitely relate to that.
Was my.
We were I was talking to Sid Clevenger. We were talking about Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. One of the greatest books ever written. Period. I read it when I was younger. I don't remember if it was for school or whatever I was doing at the time. Anyways, and I remember gleaning several different things out of that and gaining a lot of knowledge that I probably wouldn't have today if I didn't. But I recently went back probably within the last year and read it again. And I was telling him it's really funny because the first time that I read it, even though I gained so much from that book and learned so much, I didn't have any kids. I didn't have a wife. Going back and reading it now, I'm gaining just as much, if not more knowledge, because the parts that I took for granted last time hit more at home with me now, and they resonate a lot more with me now. And it's really powerful. And I think it's funny you kind of said that, because the first thing I thought of when you were saying that was like, oh, wow, yeah, I need to let that be known for sure.
I appreciate you saying that, because more people, I think, need to hear that, because I think people think they hear something once, they read something once, and they know it. They're done with it. But when you're talking about 300-400 page books that are talking about knowing yourself, I mean, what person have you personally ever met that truly knows themselves? What person have you met? And this is going to go off the wall a little bit, so bear with me. What person have you met that you can undeniably say knows where we came from, knows what we're doing here, and knows where we're going? Until exactly. So until you can answer those questions, which I don't even know if they're answerable, you got to keep studying. Mm-hmm. You can't stop studying.
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you, man.
And then my actual mentors in the real estate world, because that's all mindset stuff, right? But actual real estate mentors, were just, I mean, I could say their names, but they're not going to see this video probably, and they're not going to be known to the world, but just fellow agents that really adopted me when I expressed, and really it was me going into the office all the time. I quit being a waiter. That was it. That was the catalyst. Once I devoted to this full time, I was confident enough in this business to go full time. 1 month after I quit being a waiter, I closed a house. Nice. And it was that. Like the top agents of the town going and saying, what can I do? Give me opportunity. The people want to work with, send them my way. I'll handle them. Just give them, please. I'll work with anybody and everybody. So constantly being the squeaky wheel, I was getting the grease from the people that had grease to give because they were stocked up.
There you go, man. That's the way to do it right there. And that's something I've always been told too. I mean, if you really want it and you're loud enough, you're going to get it. Make it known that you want it and that you're hungry and that you're not going to do, you're going to do it the right way. People will feed you.
They will. And when you're out there begging for opportunity, people are going to give you opportunity just to shut you up. And then when you deliver on the opportunity, make them look good, they're going to give you more opportunity because you made them look good, and everybody wants to look good.
Exactly, man. Exactly. So, all right, man. Man, it's been great having you here, man. But we got to kind of start wrapping things up here. So the last little thing I want to ask you here, man. And I get this. People ask me this all the time. I know I've asked the same question myself all the time, and I'm going to ask it again because I don't think you could ever ask this question enough. For everybody out there that's skeptical about the whole lifestyle of, leaving the 9-to-5, leaving the slave life, getting out of that whole kind of working environment and getting into this entrepreneurial world and this entrepreneurial journey, what is the best piece of advice you could offer, and what value could you impart to someone who is, in a situation of, they have to work all week. They have to work all week long to make ends meet, and they have no real idea of how to go about breaking that lifestyle.
This is going to get spiritual here. There's no other way that I know how to describe it.
That's cool, man.
When you feel the desire that you are feeling trapped, pushed down by your job, you just feel it in your stomach, man. You know that something isn't right. Something inside of you is speaking that this isn't right. You have to go into a state of quietness, aloneness, and ask yourself questions and accept hard truths. What do I want to be doing? Am I fulfilled in what I am doing? Listen to the answers that come to you. And when you adopt the entrepreneurial mindset, let me say what the Webster definition of entrepreneur is. A person who organizes and operates a business or businesses taking on a greater than normal financial risk. You, in my opinion, you have to adopt the mindset and the attitude that I am an entrepreneur. And entrepreneurs don't necessarily ascribe to one business. They go where they are called to go. And to the person that is working the 9 to 5 and they have families and they don't have the time, you have to make the time. And I know everybody says that, but that to me really means, okay, if you have an hour a day and you want to watch TV in that hour, cut that out and spend the hour a day on the activities that are going to get you away from the thing that's making you miserable. And then the hour a day will become 2 hours a day, and it'll become 3 hours a day, and it'll become 4 hours a day until you're doing it all the time. And then your full-time endeavor is that. And I can't say where people need to find the time because I don't live their life. So adopt the personality of an entrepreneur and do whatever opportunities present themselves. And if something fails, don't think you have to run back. Keep seeking the opportunity that fits your personality. And to the person starting off, and this is coming from someone who really has only been full-time entrepreneur for 3 years now. So I'm still relatively new. No matter how scary it seems, and it will be scary, times will get hard. In the beginning, you're going to think, why the fuck did I, excuse my language, leave my job to do this? Keep the vision of freedom in your mind. Keep the vision of I am my own boss, creating my own reality, and put money second. Money has to be second, or else, in my opinion, you're constantly going to come face to face with turmoil. Have the sincere desire to fulfill your authentic self. Do whatever it tells you to do. And the money, the success, it will all follow.
Dude, that is really powerful. I know there's lots of people out there that needed to hear that, and man, I'm grateful you could be the one to say it, man. I really am. And to touch on your, making time thing, that hits home with me real hard, man. Because like we said, I've got 4 kids, I've got a wife, I've got a full-time job all the time, and that's kind of what I did, man. I'd start out, get the kids to bed, and instead of sitting down and watching TV for an hour, start doing a little bit of studying, start doing a little bit of reading. If nothing else, just start doing a little bit of content creation. Which granted, it's hard to start doing content creation unless you know what kind of content you need to be creating. But
exactly.
And it's turned into, I started, I think I was doing it, an hour, a couple nights a week, to the point where, we've been sitting here talking for almost an hour now. And it's a Sunday night, at, I'm not sure if you're still on Central Time or not, but it's 8 o'clock almost here. Most people are sitting around watching a football game right now. No offense to them. I've actually got the football game going on the TV behind me that I've looked at maybe once since we've been talking. But that's one thing I've noticed is that it slowly starts to, it starts taking up more time that you would normally spend watching TV or, doing little things. And, even to sometimes my wife's disagreement and displeasure, times that I would be, doing dishes or folding laundry. I'm sitting here on the computer and I'm like, and I'm working on something or another. But it's just, that's one of the things you got to do. It's one of the sacrifices you got to make. And, I can't tell you what's on TV anymore. I used to could, got several shows that I like watching, have no clue what's going on anymore. But it is what it is. And in the long run, they'll come out on Blu-ray eventually. They'll come out on Netflix eventually,
Yep,
and
yep,
eventually
yep.
I'll have time to sit down and watch them. You know, whether that's 6 months from now or 6 years from now. I know what I want. I know what I got to do to get there. Now I just got to make it happen.
Yes, and you have, and to the people listening, the mindset is first. Everything you're talking about, the mindset is first. If you put, because you will get discouraged if you put all your heart and soul and worth, rather, if you put all your worth into the project you're working on, you're going to get discouraged. So if you're driving in the car, listen to an audiobook. When you're sleep, if you have the ability to have speakers in your room while you're sleeping, listen to things that are going to program your mind, because our mind has been programmed for us by other people. So listen to the things and constantly stay focused on mindset. Everything else is secondary to that. Hi. Everything else is secondary. And yes, I mean, once you make the time and are doing the tasks, you're living the life of the entrepreneur.
Yeah, it took me a while to really get my mind wrapped around that, but you're absolutely right, man. Mindset is key. Mindset is everything, and until you can envelop yourself in that mindset 24/7, it's not going to happen. But Kyler, man, thanks for being here, man. You have definitely brought some amazing value to this show. You have, enlightened me on several different things that I didn't really think about beforehand. I hope that I've been able to enlighten you on a thing or two. Uh,
You have.
but man, I look forward to working with you in the future, and maybe possibly at some point maybe having some business adventures with you. I see you're
That'd
still
be
young,
awesome.
man. You're doing well for yourself. Just keep doing it, man. Keep after it. I mean, you're 24 years old. You're doing more things than most people your age could dream about doing. So
Thank you, Sean. I really
congratulations,
appreciate that.
man. And yeah, man, it's been an honor and a pleasure to have you here, buddy.
And thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for taking the time away from your family on a Sunday night to care about me. I appreciate you, and I appreciate that.
Hey, man, it's not a problem. I'm just glad to get you on here and get to know you a little better, man. So until next time, buddy, we'll holler at you later.
All right. Have a good night. Bye.